Sir, our chairman, sir. Our director general, sir.
Thank you. What class are you studying? What do you want to be?
What do you want to be?
Only thing is, I have to leave at 6:30. 95 days. Wonderful. I must have made already some wonderful difference here.
Now I realize what you say all the time.
In Ahmedabad, Professor at Ahmedabad.
We had a great fortune of meeting with him several times. It was amazing. And also the Java Science Conference was a wonderful event that happened. I know the speed in which you work. I know the speed in which you talk and think, but that was the speed in which you work. Half an hour meeting we put together the conference. I think you had invited 15 of them. All of them came. Probably Sudhir Banerjee.
Yes.
We had invited him. He just came up with an operation. And actually, I checked with you whether it was somebody else. Maybe I continue.
How many faculty?
Saying, all my life I'm trying to control. Perfect. He started his life as a physicist. And then he wanted to become a PhD in physics, much like you. But I think life took him in a very different direction. We are a very interesting person. A very noble person. That should be a mission. So I think very convincing.
I'll also give a little. Yeah. No.
Everything is the staff stays here. We are in the process of building a small school. What about Bangalore? So Bangalore is much smaller because of being very congested. It's about only there is one coming in Raipur. Oh, yeah. So I'm so happy.
No, I am very happy.
Talent. I am pleased to introduce Shri Narayana Murthy, Chief Mentor, Chairman, Infosys Technology, to you and to the Institute. He is not a new person to the whole country. Everybody knows him, who does not know him. And everybody wants to be like him, who does not aspire to be like that. I think he's brought two very fascinating things to India. One, he has shown that India can shine, and he has helped to build the Indian brand wherever we go. 15 years before, when we went to the European consulate, you were in a way ridiculed that you are from India. When you go today, you are respected. I think people like Murthy has made a significant contribution in this direction. Mr. Murthy has also shown a middle-class person can rise and become a star in this country. And therefore, it's a hope for all of us. The number of awards, recognitions, the iconic status that he has got, the kind of influence that he has got, the sharpness in his thinking, the bias for action, these are things I had the fortune of at least watching him from a distance for about 5 years. And that's known. I'm not going to spend time on it. We are delighted that Mr. Murthy is here on our campus. And also sharing with him, he is the first leadership series speaker on our campus, and we are very truly delighted about this. And I hope that your arrival brings more people of your kind as we go along in the next couple of years. With these words, I would leave the floor to Mr. Murthy. Before that, he preferred this to be an interactive session. I had requested him to talk about something which is very dear to him. Infosys is now 27.5 years old, and he has created it along with 6 of his co-founders and a large number of Infosys as well along. I had requested him to say a few words for a few minutes on the joy of creating Infosys, and then I think he would take questions and interactions with you as we go by. Can can we welcome you with a bouquet of flowers if they are nearby? Thanks, Ravi, for those kind words. Ravi and I have had a relationship, a friendship for 7-8 years now. We have worked together at least on 2 projects. One project very closely, another in some way I added some value. I have tremendous respect, admiration and affection for what Ravi has done at IIM in his chosen area of strategy. I was also very pleased when he wrote to me saying that he would be taking over as the director of IIM Indore. So I didn't want to lose an opportunity of coming and meeting him, and of course, as importantly, interacting with the youngsters, with the future leaders of this country. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Ravi wanted me to speak on the joy of creating emphasis. I told him I'd rather make it an interactive session than speaking than a monologue, because the questions are certainly relevant to you, and hopefully answers should be. So anyway, let me take a few minutes and talk about the story of Infosys. Infosys was founded because of my disillusionment with leftism. I was a strong leftist when I was a student. I was a strong leftist when I used to work at IIM Ahmedabad. In fact, so much so that some of my colleagues challenged me, saying that you are a leftist because you can't get a very good job in a well-known company. And I said, you name the company you want me to get the job to, I'll get the job and reject it. They said, why don't you get a job as a senior officers in Hindustan Lever, not so much senior officer, mid-level officer in Hindustan Lever. Then we'll believe you. I got a job as head of data processing at Hindustan Lever, and I promptly rejected it. I suppose my credibility, at least insofar as my leftism was concerned, was a little bit better. Anyway. So I spent several years in France and had lots of discussions with the right, the left, and the center. I got convinced that the only way the problem of our society can be solved, the only way poverty can be solved in India is by creating jobs. And so I wanted to come back and after 4 years or so, because I realized that if I stayed further, I wouldn't have come back to India. So I came back, and that's in some way was how Infosys got created. I remember sometime in May 1981 when we sat down at my single bedroom apartment in Bombay to discuss the objectives of the company. Somebody said we'll want to become the company with the highest revenue in software. Somebody else said we should be the most profitable software company. And finally, I suggested, and everybody agreed, that we will be the most respected company in India. Because my logic was very simple. If you seek respect, then you won't shortchange your customers, you won't shortchange your fellow employees, you will be fair with them, you will follow the finest principles of corporate governance with your investors, and adhere to transparency and accountability, and then you will not violate any law of the land, and you will live in harmony with the society. And then I said, if you followed all of this, and if you did all of it, automatically revenues will come, profits will come, and hopefully market capitalization will come. The journey was a very tough one because the country was, the government was extremely business unfriendly. It took us 3 years to get a license to import a computer. It would take 15 days for the Reserve Bank of India to permit us to go abroad 1 day. It would take 3 years to get a telephone line. We used to have this joke that half the phones, half the people are waiting for a telephone and the other half are waiting for a dial tone. So that was the situation of the business unfriendliness in India. However, in some way, right from day one, I suggested to my colleagues that we'll operate on some simple rules of business. One, you will spend less than what you earn. Second, we will declare dividends right from day one. Because they said, look, we have to go public in 10 years, and if you want to go public in 10 years, then you must have a record of declaring dividends. Third, when my colleagues were very happy that I was going to declare some dividends, then I told them, you'll pay taxes on your dividend, put them back as your equity. Because at that point in time, we had a rule that you had to have an equity of at least 3 crores. Even today, I think it is there. And we said, if you want to have an equity of at least 3 crores, and if you want to hold at least 60% of the equity, if you assume that you gave away 40%, or you gave away 20% and have to have 80% equity, then you need to have a total equity of somewhere between 1.8 crores and 2.4 crores. When you start the company with 10,000 rupees, even assuming that you'll have many stock dividends or bonus shares, unless you put back your after-tax dividend as your share in equity, you will not be able to get to that figure of 1.8 crores or 2.4 crores. And my colleagues are very, very, very nice people, and they agreed with me. And the result was that we're the only, perhaps one of the only, probably the only company amongst the entrepreneur-driven companies which did not take any money from banks as a loan to subscribe to the equity just before going public. A few companies did that. When the stock price went down, then obviously they had to sell a large part of their equity to pay back the bank loans. In our case, we didn't do. Anyway, the third thing that I suggested was that we use simple business rules, because with simple business rules, it's easy to understand, it's easy to communicate, and it's easy to follow. It's very, very important, because when you are 7 people when you found the company, it's not easy to run the company, I can tell you. And there is scope for interpretation, because there are 7 people. It's like 7 people and 7 blind people and the elephant kind of stuff. So I said that's precisely the reason why I insisted on simple rules, and I'm happy that we stuck to that, and that helped us be together. The next principle that we followed was that there be one leader. No matter what differences we have, if there is any contention, that leader has to decide, and everybody will accept that. And also concomitantly, that leader must be the one who will sacrifice most. That leader will be the one who will always look after the interests of the remaining 6. And I'm glad they chose me to be the leader, and it worked out pretty well. We also said right in the beginning that in order to maintain a harmonious relationship, in order to maintain a relationship where people don't see cliques, people don't see biases, we said we will decide every issue based on data and facts. That helped us quite a lot, because there were so many instances when people
who had different perceptions of the same problem, same issue, would come together. In the beginning, they would be skeptical, they would be in some way distrustful of the other point of view, and when you place data and facts on the table, then people would realize that, yeah, this is wonderful. Finally, we'd all go back happy. There was another principle that we use, and that again has worked extremely well, and that is, you can disagree with me as long as you're not disagreeable. That is, in a democracy, there's always scope for discussion, debate, pluralism, all of that. However, that should not lead to rudeness, and that should not spoil personal relationship. That has stood us in wonderful stead. We also followed another principle, and that we said, we must recruit people who are smarter than us. Because if we are the smartest people in the company and we start recruiting people less smart, before you say Jack Robinson, the company will be full of idiots. So we said, we will try and recruit people who are smarter than us. And that again, I must say, has helped the company create successive layers of leaders. And today the company is strong because we have many, many layers of very competent, wonderful people. We also said that, look, if you want to recruit people who are smarter than you, then you must protect the respect and dignity of the professional. Concomitantly, we also said that if we want to become a multi-billion-dollar corporation, of course at that time we were not thinking of multi-billion dollars, we said multi-billion-dollar corporation, then you have to respect and protect the dignity of the professional. And we said the best way of doing it is making sure that nobody blurred the distinction between corporate resources and personal needs, and that family did not play any role in the company. I'm very happy to say that my wife, she's a much better engineer than I am. She was first rank in every of the 10 semesters. She was first rank from the University of Science. She had a PhD fellowship to do from MIT, all of that. But she never set foot into my office till I retired, as a symbol. And I'm glad to say that all my colleagues have followed that too. The result is, every professional in the company knows that the family will not play any role in running the company. We also said that, look, at some point of time, we will have to go public. And if we want to go public, then we must run this company as trustees of the shareholders. And by running this company as trustees of shareholders, actually we will be winners in the long term. Because the stock price will be better, we will be able to declare dividends, etc., etc. And that means we have to follow the finest principles of corporate governance. Because we said that, look, shareholders understand that there will be ups and downs in a corporation. What they want you to do is to level with them at all points of time. What they want is to bring the bad news proactively and early. And I'm glad to say that we have done it time and again, time and again, time and again. The result is, this company has created, well, right now it's somewhat less, 7 billionaires and 2,000 millionaires and probably 20,000 rupee millionaires, $2,000 millionaires and 20,000 rupee millionaires. So anyway, I can go on and on and on, but I'll stop here and I will take questions. I would start with a lady and then a man, lady and a man. That's generally the way I handle questions. And just introduce yourself and ask any question. No question is stupid, only answers are stupid. So you don't have to worry. Please. First question is always the most difficult one. That's why I said a lady must take it. Please. Come on, man. Come on. Please.
Yeah, please. Just introduce yourself.
So when you set up Infosys, you said, so I'm Prerna Raman.
Oh, wonderful. Fabulous.
This one working. So I'm Prerna Raman. I'm in the first year here. And I've already
Which
known-
campus of Infosys were you in?
So I was at the Pune DC.
Oh, I was about to say, were you in Pune? Anyway, no.
So we had a lot of discussion about what the purpose of Infosys was. When you founded Infosys, what purpose did you have in mind? And we weren't really able to reach a conclusion as to what the purpose of Infosys was. So if you could just tell us something about it.
Well, as I said right in the beginning, my purpose was to demonstrate my belief that creation of jobs through entrepreneurship is the only way to solve the problem of poverty in the country. There were many other sub-themes, that is to demonstrate that it is possible to run a legal and ethical business in India. Third, it is possible to create an experiment in democratization of wealth. Fourth, it is possible to run a business without family playing any part. So there were, but the main one was to prove that it is possible to leverage the power of entrepreneurship to create jobs. And I can tell you at that time it was not very easy. 1981, it was, most of you were not born at that time, but I can tell you it was not easy. It was very, very difficult because the environment was so business unfriendly. But we said we will try and do that. God has been kind to us. Yeah. Next one. Yeah, please.
Sir, I'm Adit Jaiswal. I wanted to ask you if you have to pinpoint one reason as to what made you give up a comfortable corporate job and take up entrepreneurship as a challenge. What was that one single reason or one single point which gave you courage that I can do it?
Well, you know, when I came back to India and then I, along with my professor Krishnaya of IIIM Ahmedabad, we founded Systems Research Institute in Pune to look at the problems of public systems, particularly applying operations research, systems theory, and computer science to solve the problems of large-scale public systems. And I realized pretty quickly that that was not a very interesting job simply because whatever projects we did for Government of India, and without exception, they all started gathering dust on the shelves of the secretaries to Government of India. I said, look, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wasting my time like this. I want to do something worthwhile. So then I joined Patni Computer Systems at Bombay. And I was the head of software. I was number 2 after the founder of the company, Mr. Ashok Patni. He was a wonderful person, extraordinary person. And always at the back of my mind that I had to prepare myself to conduct this experiment. So in some sense, my mind was prepared to take the plunge ever since the day I left Paris. However, it was the support provided by my wife. She was working with the Tatas as a manager, and she told me that she would be able to support me because she found myself sometimes getting frustrated that I was not able to do what I wanted. And I had also this belief that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to start it before you're 35. And there is no proof to that, but I had seen many cases where people who are in their 40s try entrepreneurship and somehow it didn't work out. So I had this fixation and I had this belief that you had to be an entrepreneur. And as that time was coming, nearer and nearer, so my wife said, look, why don't you go ahead and do it? If you want to do, I'll be there.
And that's how I read it. But really the motivation was to create an enterprise, to create jobs, etc., etc. Yeah. Can we go back to another job, hopefully from Infosys? Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Sir, I'm Neeta Nagar. And sir, Indian IT industry has come a long way.
Hmm.
And now, but how do you see the future of Indian IT industry in the current scenario?
Well, we have had 36% compound annual growth between 1988, when this industry was in some way adopted by NASCOM on a tipsy evening in Boston, and we were at that point in time probably something like $10 million or something, the entire industry, and today this industry as of 31st March 2009 will be $6 billion, of which about 48 or 49 will be from exports, including IT and BPO. So we've done reasonably well. We contribute about 5.5% of the country's GDP with just 3 million people, as against 19% of GDP coming from agriculture, where probably, anywhere between 300 to 600 million people are directly or indirectly employed. And similarly, if you compare with the services sector, or if you compare with the manufacturing sector, we are so much better. So on the whole, we have done reasonably well. We, for the first time in 300 years, there is a certain respect for India outside, and that has happened because of this industry. For the first time, this industry has demonstrated, barring of course one notable exception, that it is possible to run business legally and ethically. For the first time, this industry conducted a large-scale experiment in democratization of wealth, that is Infosys. I think there are a lot of good things that this industry has done. However, because we are right now in a synchronized downturn, in a recession that has spanned multiple countries, in a downturn that has enveloped both the Wall Street and the Main Street, in a situation which could be called either a recession or even a depression, reminding us of what happened in 1929, it is bound to sap our enthusiasm a little bit. We ourselves have revised our growth rate downwards by a factor of 30%. We had said we would grow between 19 and 21% in dollar terms when we started the year, and now we have said 13 to 15% after 3 quarters. So in that sense, yes, we are in somewhat difficult days. We are in uncertain days. But I think God is not finished with us. I do think that this situation will ameliorate in hopefully perhaps 18 months or in maybe 18 to 36 months, and we'll be back on business. So I'm quite optimistic.
My name is Sai Ganesh. I just had a question. You spoke about the people that you started the company with. Can you just elaborate on how it came about that these group of people were the people you chose to start with us? And you always wonder whether other people share you.
Well, I tell you, all these people had been recruited by me at PCS. They were all working with me. When I was at PCS and later on even in Infosys, till probably 1994, 95, I participated in every recruitment. And I recruited people on my belief in learnability. I define learnability as the ability to extract generic inferences out of specific instances and using them in new unstructured situations. I used to give them a few puzzles. Even today, we at Infosys, certainly the senior management, we are pretty good in solving puzzles, mathematical puzzles. That's how, at least, I spend most of my time in doing that. So we found that those of us who are pretty good in solving mathematical puzzles are pretty good in learnability. And so I selected all these people. Probably I selected about 100 of them, 100, 150 at PCS, and every one of them was a star. There is no doubt at all. But when I wanted to start my company, I said, look, I need people who have very similar value system. People who believe in deferred gratification, people who believe in putting the interests of the company ahead of their own personal interests, people who is willing to suppress their egos to work for the betterment of the team, etc., etc. So that's how I chose these 6 people. And also there was one more criterion that I used. I said, look, I want to bring together people who had mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive set of skills, expertise, and experience. All of us knew software reasonably well. I selected, I am fairly okay in finance in addition to software. So I selected somebody who was pretty good in sales and marketing. I selected somebody who was pretty good in human resources. I selected somebody who was pretty good in technology, somebody who was pretty good in project management, etc. That's how the 7 people were selected. Yeah? Now it's...
Good evening, sir.
Why lady? We have to get back to the lady. I know Ravi said there are only 12% women in the class. I asked right in the beginning. Huh? 5%? What is it? No, I think those 5% should get priority. Yeah, please.
Hello, sir. I'm Sulakshana.
Yeah.
My question is, when you started Infosys, you would have faced a lot of, probably some difficulty in the initial few years.
Sure.
So what were they and how did you overcome all these?
The business was extremely unfriendly. Second, there was expectation that we would succumb to bad practices in government. For example, when we imported our first computer, that was the first computer that was being imported through Bangalore Customs. And when they saw the CIF value was 52 lakhs of rupees, and those days, it was something like 8-9 rupees per dollar. So you're looking at approximately about $550,000 or $580,000. We had a concessional duty certificate from the Department of Electronics, the predecessor to Ministry of Information Technology. But the customs officer in Bangalore said, I don't recognize this. He said, look, here is the phone number, here is the designation of the officer, he is the Joint Secretary to the Government of India, he is in Delhi, please call him up. He said, no, it's not my problem to call him up. I won't accept it. I said, what do you want us to do? He said, look, you have to, instead of 0 duty, you have to pay 150% duty. And I can tell you that was a lot of money those days for a small company which had no money, paying. Of course, he wanted this, extra duty on a part of the equipment. It was something like 30 lakhs of rupees. I can tell you when our first year revenue was just $130,000, which translated to 10 lakhs. Paying 30 lakhs of rupees was not easy. So we had 2 options. One was to pay him a small fee as corruption and get away with it. Or second, to say, we'll put on the 30 lakhs of rupees and fight it. We put the 30 lakhs of rupees. We borrowed it from bank, from, what is that? KSIIDC, Karnataka State Industrial Investment and Development Corporation, and Karnataka State Financial Corporation. And we paid that, and then we fought it. We went right up to the tribunal and we won it after 9 years. So, and we didn't get any interest, nothing. You know how government of India is. There's zero on accountability, right? As far as citizens are concerned. So anyway, so we paid that. So, third, for example, we did not have a telephone line. I went to the chief general manager of Karnataka Telephones, and I met him and I requested him for a telephone. Those days, there was higher priority for telephone allotment to a retired government officer compared to a company which was doing exports. I explained that we had a contract with a customer who was willing to lend us a Magnuson, an IIIM compatible computer, costing $300,000. He was willing to loan it to us in Bangalore, free. All he wanted was that we had a telephone connection, because at least you could know what the progress of the project is. But the chief general manager of Bangalore Telephones, who happened to be a relative of mine, he refused. He said, "You please tell your customers the problems that we have in India." So I asked him, I said, "Mr. So-and-so, if you and your wife wants a refrigerator tomorrow, you go to the main street and you find this gleaming white Godrej refrigerator. Next to it there is this small fellow who is tinkering, and he says, 'Oh, come back 2 years later, I'll give you. You please understand my problem. Which one will your wife choose?' He said, 'Don't be impertinent, don't ask me such questions.'" And I went out and I took a decision to send all my colleagues, 6 of them, to New York. And they did the project there. No, the point is, if we had given some 5,000 rupees to the touts, I could have got the telephone connection. So I think we went through lots of difficulties. Another time, I tell you, this was much later, in 1994. By then we were reasonably known. See, the moment you get listed and the moment your stock price does well, everybody knows you. Right? Because many government people will invest in those stocks, and so they respect you, they know you and all that. Anyway, so this guy, we had applied for buying 14 acres of land which was being sold by Siemens. Siemens didn't want to build anything and they wanted to sell it off. And then, no, Siemens or some other German company, I don't remember the name now, anyway. And Kionix, Karnataka State Electronics Corporation, had decided to give the land to us because we had demonstrated our commitment to actually using it, because we had built the first software campus in the country and all of that. The minister was on our side, the MD was on our side. But there was this officer who told a younger colleague of mine, he said, "Look, unless you people give me some bribe, I will create problem." The land price at that point in time was 10 lakhs per acre. And this was 14 lakhs. Sorry, 14 acres. So it was 1 crore 40 lakhs. What he wanted was, he said, "Look, if you people don't pay bribe to me, I will create problems to you and I will ensure that you pay 14 lakhs per acre. In other words, you pay 1 crore 96 lakhs. Now you pay 56 lakhs rupees extra." And my younger colleague said, "Look, my managing director is a mad fellow, he won't pay." He said, "No, I'll make sure that your managing director comes to my house and pays." So we didn't pay. So what he did was, he went to the Kionix union, because he knew that the Kionix board was on our side. He knew that the minister was on our side. So he went to Kionix union and said, "The minister and the board of Kionix is trying to cause loss to Kionix, so you people must go on strike." So then the minister called me and said, "Look, Mr. Murthy, we want to give you, we know you are decent people, etc., but this is the problem that one of the officers created. You have 2 choices. One, you pay 14 lakhs per acre, or you wait for a few years." I said, "How much time will it take?" He said, "It may take anywhere between 2 months and 10 years. I said, I can't pay. So I said, we agreed to pay 14 lakhs per acre. In other words, we paid 56 lakhs extra. He was expecting 5.6 lakhs as his cut. Then I tell you the story didn't stop there. When he found that we actually agreed to pay 14 lakhs, he sent one of his friends who was a shareholder in Infosys, he had 10 shares or something. At the AGM, he wanted to move a resolution that this management has cheated the company because they have paid shortchanged the company because they have paid 14 lakhs per acre as against 10 lakhs. In other words, they have caused loss to the company. They should be removed. The point I'm making is that there are all kinds of people in this country. They will try and force you to become corrupt. They will go to any extent. But I think there is a certain joy, there is a certain sense of accomplishment if you don't fall prey to it. After all, what is value system? Value system translates your ability to pay a certain price for your belief, ability to pay a certain cost for your belief. Supposing you and I are going on street and you see a 500 rupee bill and then you look at right, left, center, there's nobody, but you say, no, this must belong to some fellow who lost it, let me go and give it to the police people. On the other hand, if I go and if I find there's nobody around me, if I put it in my pocket, my value system is worse than yours because you're willing to lose that 500 rupees. So inevitably, if you want value system, if you want to subscribe to your value system, you will pay a certain price. And the beauty is the moment you demonstrate to the other party, once that you will not accept their terms, I can tell you second time, they will not hinder you. In fact, they want you to succeed. You know, in their subconscious, they want you to be honest. They want you because they want things to go well in India. Even the worst fellow in India, the worst politician, the worst bureaucrat, wants India to progress. It's not that he doesn't want or she doesn't want. It is just that they realize that the easier path is for them to make money and then India will make some progress. So if you succeed in that, they will actually like you. So I think you should do that. Yeah.
Sure.
Please.
My name is Karthik. All of us have heard of the Infosys story. But lots of them do not know that you had another venture before Infosys. I think it was Infotronics.
No, it's called Softronics.
Softronics, yeah. So, what was the thing, I mean, why didn't that take off and what was the one thing you did different from Softronics to Infosys?
I think that's a very good question. In 1977, I started an enterprise called Softronics in Pune. But I committed a fundamental mistake, and that is, I said I'll focus on the Indian market. At that point in time, given that there were business opportunities in India were so few, the probability of an entrepreneur succeeding in my business was very, very low. For example, it would take about 3 to 4 years for a corporation to get a license to import a computer. If you wanted to enhance the disk drive capacity from 100 megabytes not giga, to 120 megabytes, you would take 9 months to 10 months. So there were very, very few companies which had corporations which had computers. And second, those computers were extremely outdated, 1401s and ICL 1901. And those machines did not even have the platform to develop many new applications, innovative applications, because of the limitations on the memory and the disk capacity. Fourth, those machines were so expensive, and at that time the mini computers and super mini computers had not yet come into the country. If you wanted to develop any software on those, it used to cost us 550 rupees per hour. For example, if you compiled a 1,000-line COBOL program on an ICL 1901A, it would take 20 minutes. And one simple mistake, one comma you missed, you would have blown up 200 rupees. In other words, I realized pretty quickly that focusing on the Indian market was the wrong thing at that time. So I quickly rolled back my plan, and then I joined TCS as head of their software group, and then I realized I will focus on the export market at that time. That was it.
So, you like her to ask a question?
Yeah, I want a girl to ask, but yeah.
Sir, my only question is when you
No,
started...
no, you don't violate the law. Don't violate the law. I do want a girl to ask, but even if they're only 5%. No, first year 5, second year what percentage?
Good evening, sir. This
Please.
is Anjali from PGP2.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that when you, Infosys is a pioneer in offshore development model. This business model, at that point in time when India did not have the enough IT infrastructure, I believe even at that point in time enough manpower was not available. So how did this idea came into existence at that point in time?
No, but right from day one, our desire was to create jobs in India. Our desire was to add value from India. So we imported a data journal MV8000, which we used 16 hours a day for developing applications for our customers, and 8 hours we used as a data center for Micro. Talent was not difficult those days. See, I was the first person in the industry to realize that software development does not require computer science people. Software development requires people who are logical, people who have high learnability, people who have a sense of algorithmic thinking. So I was the first person in the industry to throw open software programmer position to civil engineers, mechanicals, metallurgical, everybody. And that's why I called them software engineers. I didn't call them programmers. And in fact, I had some naval architecture guys from IIT Madras. I had agricultural engineers from IIT Kharagpur. I had textile engineers from IIT Delhi. All of that. So the moment you think outside the box, the moment you change the rules of the game, many constraints go away. So because I realized that you don't need just computer science people, there was no shortage of smart people.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Now, I think he wanted to ask a question, right? Somewhere there. So,
Sir, first a couple of questions, sir.
No, then there's a girl in between you. Yeah, who is the person then? Somebody wanted to ask, eh? You wanted to ask, right, sir? Good, please.
So the Rishabh here. First question being, when you started as a group of 7 individuals, how tough was it to convince clients based out of America they should trust 7 of you?
No, I tell you, we had a very interesting situation. One of the clients of database of Putney Computer Systems, a customer called Databasics Corporation, after he completed a project with us, he realized the potential of India. And he started a company in seeds. He had 95% of the equity, and then he gave 5% to one of the managers from ACC, Associated Cement Companies. And they had been going for about a year. Some of these managers from associated companies had not done a good job. And I saw it as an opportunity to sit down with this person, the CEO of Databasics, and convince him that he is much better off signing an agreement with us, and the quality of what we produce will be better, the probability of success will be higher, etc., compared to he operating his own center in seeds. God was kind to us, and I was lucky, and I could convince him to close down his own operation and sign a contract with us. So that was the first one. the moment, and then we took responsibility for hosting the package from a 16-bit mini computer to a 32-bit super mini computers. And then we went to IBM 4381, all of that for him. And we installed it for him and supported it for about 50 customers in the apparel sector. By then, people had noticed us, and it became word of mouth, etc. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. This is Amrita. You said that at Infosys it was always a conscious effort on your side to hire people smarter than yourself.
Yeah.
So could you throw some light about, as we hear from people with experience, it's always tougher to manage intelligent people, to manage smart workers compared to the other class. Can you throw some light on how does it work? How does such a huge machinery of smart people work? How do you lead and manage such people?
Of discussion and debate. If you create an environment of data and facts, it is possible for people to accept if they lose a transaction. Now, if there are lots of smart people, if they're all thinking, working smart, their success will be a uniform distribution. It will not be a normal distribution. You understand the difference, right? It will be a uniform distribution. That means the probability of me, if I'm smart, you are definitely smart, and Ravi, every one of us winning a transaction is the same. That is, 1/3 of the time you will win, 1/3 I will win, 1/3 you will win. As long as you have collected smart people in the group. And second, what happens? If he wins twice, you and I may get upset. But the way to sort out that is, if he uses data and facts, if he argues with data and facts, then we know one thing, that if we have better quality of data, better facts, we can win next time. Number two, just because you and I did not win this transaction against him twice, it is his responsibility to make sure that he doesn't look down upon us. It is his responsibility to continue to respect us. I think if you installed a few of these simple rules in the system, then it is not a problem. The reason why most people, or the reason why intelligent people destabilize environments is because they stand apart. They know they're smart. They want to prove that they're smart in every transaction. And when they win a transaction, they are not very graceful. So it's very, very important for us to follow a few principles which will ensure that there is no loss of self-esteem, there is no loss of self-confidence for those who lost the transaction. I think that's the only way you can move forward. And the solution is not to recruit smart people. Sorry, I'm saying the solution is not to recruit smart people. You have to recruit smart people. Yeah, no, I thought somebody there wanted to know something.
My name is Krishna, sir.
Yeah.
You are in a position where you can influence popular opinion, even if it's part political in nature. But you seem to be avoiding that. Why is it?
I thought IIM Indore boys and girls were very smart. Now I'm beginning to doubt that. You have a highly inflated opinion of me. Number two, for which I'm very grateful, very, very thankful. I hope you continue to have that in future too. Number two, I think you people have not understood the real world out there. The real world is, I'm not saying it in a pejorative way, I'm not saying it in a negative way. The real world out there is completely different. Most often in India, there is no rational analysis of any issue. Let me give you a very simple example. In 2003, October, Dr. Murali Manoj Joshi took a decision to unilaterally reduce the fees of IIMs by 80%. I was the only chairman who stood up to him. Each time I would go to his house, wonderful, he's now a wonderful friend of mine. Each time I go to his house, sit down in the evening, I would start discussing with him around 6 o'clock in the evening. He was always gracious to offer me dinner. And by 10 o'clock I would say, Murthy sahab, jo aap keh rahe hai, wo theek lagta hai. All that's how he would finish the transaction. But I come back to Bangalore, by 3:30 I say, Murthy sahab, kuch problem aa gaya hai. I asked him, what's the problem? He just would not be able to explain. I think, see, that's the thing, when you go on ideology, when you go, in this case ideology, when you go on ego, there is no place for rational discussions. So most of the actions that you see by politicians in the country today are irrational. They are party-based, they are individual-based, they are ego-based. So I think people like you and me, who are very comfortable in this wonderful auditorium, I don't know if we can really fight those people. No. I think, I must admit my incompetencies, and certainly my competency is give me an enlightened democracy, I think I have a fair chance. This is a wonderful example of an enlightened democracy. I can work here, but not. Anyway, on that note, thank you very much. I am indeed very grateful.
Our guest was speaking plane at 7:50 Bombay, so we will not hold him for too long. It is extremely kind of you to come to the campus. And I know that this is probably the 7th or 8th appointment he had in the short visit to Indore. He arrived yesterday evening, and I missed the opportunity of joining for dinner because of some emergencies in Delhi. And I think in spite of that, he showed enough enthusiasm and openness to share his thoughts with us, and we are really grateful. A few things are placed before you about Indore IIM and seek your help in public to make this place a better place. We are in the second decade of our existence. Our 10th convocation is scheduled on March 30th. One of your colleagues, Mr. Ramudurai, is going to be the chief guest of this convocation. We are probably one of the finest IIMs in terms of resource efficiency, which you like. I know that you like it.
Told me that today.
And we do wonderfully well in terms of resource productivity. We are in the process of getting into a large number of new activities, and we need help and guidance from very enlightened people like you. And I'll come to you time and again. On behalf of all of us, I'm sure you will help us in explaining that. On behalf of us, we have a very small memento here. We will share this with you, and can I have this? You can do it.
देखिए बच्चा which stage you will not refer to me? No sir, not yet. Damodaran is coming. Okay. Anyway, a couple of other we need somebody from the industry perspective. I thought let me find out. Thank you. Wonderful. But you have sent it off people, right? Yes. Wonderful. Thanks. Take care. Thanks for coming. No, pleasure.